Okay, so y'all have said you want more of this type of content, so I'm gonna give you what you asked for. Yeah, first of all, y'all just don't understand how I love this chair. I just love this chair. Like, this is an extra pillow that I have in it, but y'all, I feel so held in my chair. I just love it. I'm gonna put the link below. I think I'm gonna pin it somewhere. Try to see if I can get a little coin off of it because I talk about this chair so much. Anyway, late diagnosed autistic girly here, business owner. I'm also the mother of a 6-year-old autistic son, and he really is how I ended up realizing that, whoa, maybe I should go, figure out what's going on with me too and get some testing done. So, Develda Edgington, the NeuroFem Rebel, and your brand therapist. I have been an entrepreneur for about 10 years now. And my background is in psychology, marriage and family therapy. That's what I did in California, domestic violence treatment provider. I have done all things from child and family therapy. I worked with sex offenders, which, by the way, I realized my deal breaker can do that type of work, but not everybody is for everybody, right? So domestic violence, like I said, treatment provider was definitely an eye-opening experience for me. And military, I'm a military veteran, 10 years active duty, military spouse for 25 years. I'm now divorced for a little over a year now. And so, yeah, that's me. That's my background. I was diagnosed as autistic roughly 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago now. Probably actually closer to 3. I think towards the end of the year we'll be right around 3. But I did start to notice, I was diagnosed with ADHD in my 30s. So, but I've always managed it because, I was in the military structure. And that's one big thing about people with ADHD. We need and we love structure, right? Well, I can't say we love it. We don't love it because we are not able to create it for ourselves. But we need it, and when we can be in spaces and places where it's created for us, we typically thrive. So I had to make that distinction because people say people ADHD, or I'm Gemini as well, so imagine being an autistic Gemini. How many of us is in here? There's like 5 people in me. Not literally. Anyway, so I started to notice a lot of things, but I was in the military structure, and so that helped me. When I became an entrepreneur, which is the neurodivergent amplifier, right? You become an entrepreneur, you make your own schedule, you're responsible for doing everything yourself. Like, you're responsible for your schedules. Nobody's gonna tell you what to do, when to do it. You just have to find it within yourself. So I want to say fortunate, but later I realized maybe it wasn't so fortunate that I was able to find a coach fairly early in my entrepreneurial journey. So I didn't have to necessarily do it alone, but it also stifled me because I only learned it one way, right? I didn't go through the process and the journey of making all the mistakes and helping you find who you are, because I had somebody right there telling me, like, don't do this, don't do that, make this move, make that move. And so while that helped me and I was able to attain great success very early as a new entrepreneur, it also stifled me because I never learned how to do it for myself. And so it made me a little bit dependent on that. And so that I didn't go through the typical trial and error, and some would say that's good and some would say that's not. But for me, a person who had already been masking her entire life, first I didn't know it was masking. So a person had been masking and performing and a people pleaser and hiding my quirks and constantly taking in data running it through the filter of my neurodivergent brain, and then spitting it back out to people, they didn't realize that I was doing that. They didn't realize that every single task would take me a little longer, a lot longer, but it was more brain work for me because I had to run it through all of these neurodivergent filters and then go figure out how to do it and then spit it back to them. It looked effortless to them. Like, oh my gosh, and so when I started to experience some resistance and I wasn't able to do that, so it was starting to wear on me mentally, emotionally, psychologically. It looked like, well, what's wrong with Dee? Like all of a sudden, she needs things to be done this way, or she needs things to be broken down this way, or her brain doesn't work like that. Like, what's going on? Because I had been masking it for so long and just managing it and handling it. And so I even had to do a ADA violation lawsuit, by the way, which I won for a company not too long ago. But anyway, so when you hit 40, estrogen drops, that masking becomes more and more difficult, right? And so that's why a lot of women are late diagnosed and they don't really realize it until they're in their 40s. And then all of a sudden it's like a crash out and meltdown just to make dinner. They can't do anything. Skill regression, low spoon, every day is a low spoon day. They have no patience. Just everything is just a meltdown. Everything is a crisis, and it's not just hormonal. It's not. A lot of us that have been considered high functioning, or I like to call it high masking, we go, do, but there's only so much stress our body can go through. We're not designed to be in this constant fight or flight mode all the time. So that begins to take a toll on us, internally. And then the crash out comes, and then the burnout comes. And like I said, next thing you know, you're crying in the kitchen because you have to do something you've been doing forever, which is like make dinner or go to the grocery store, or anything you do now is like, you're not leaving the house. You don't want to be people-y. And COVID, brought that out for a lot of people as well, because they started to find safety in confinement. And that's like, you want me to return to the world. And they're like, whoa, wait a minute. And people are thinking that they just don't want to go back to work. No, a lot of people realized that they retreat to isolation for safety and to recover. But when they have to go back out and introduce themselves to the world, that's when triggers happen and they don't know why. They think, it's agoraphobia or whatever, social anxiety, when it's really likely their nervous system saying, trigger, burnout on the horizon again. So that's what happened for me. I started to feel it about 4 years ago. But then when my son entered the school system and he had to go through all his testing, a lot of the things he was going through and the doctors were questioning, I was like, wait a minute, that's not like me. Being a late diagnosed Black woman over 40, realizing that your entire life you have been masking, it's like, well, then what is real? Like, what's me and what was masking? Like, was I masking this area of my life? Was I masking my sexuality? By the way, yep, I'm a late blooming lesbian too. So it's like, was I masking this? Was I masking that? What did I miss? How did I miss this? You start asking all of these questions, right? And you're trying to find solutions, all while everybody else is looking at you like, what is wrong with you? Why are you changing? Why are you doing this? Because they preferred the masked version of you. Once you start developing boundaries, you start using words like no, or no, words like that's not going to work for me, or that's not how my brain works. Once you start using those types of words, people get uncomfortable and they want the old version of you back.